In the year 2025, the city of Los Angeles is in the midst of rapid technological advancement and has become the center of modern life. The city is known for its magnificent skyscrapers, never-ending shopping centers, and an entertainment industry that produces various world-class innovations and entertainment. Los Angeles, once a symbol of success and luxury, is facing a major tragedy. The main cause of this massive fire began with a small but fatal incident in a magnificent skyscraper. A leading technology company was testing a new device that uses high energy to optimize the power and efficiency of computer systems. But on a seemingly ordinary night, the device malfunctioned. The cooling system designed to stabilize the indoor temperature failed, causing the temperature inside the building to rise steadily. Without adequate warning systems, the extremely high temperatures caused a small fire that quickly spread. The small fire grew in a matter of minutes, creating a massive heat wave. Because the building was located in the city center, the fire quickly spread to surrounding buildings. Strong winds coming from the north made matters worse, accelerating the spread of the fire. Several main roads that were the center of the city's life were also caught in the flames. The high-rise buildings that used to be symbols of the city's glory were now in ruins. Authorities quickly deployed firefighting teams consisting of local officers and emergency response teams from surrounding areas. However, as the fire spread, their efforts seemed futile. The fire was so fierce that it could not be controlled by ordinary equipment. Panicked residents began to flee their homes and belongings, seeking shelter outside the city. The main roads and bridges connecting important parts of the city were soon filled with speeding vehicles, hoping to escape this unpredictable disaster. This building may seem ordinary from the outside, but for those who know this place, it has a very different value. Inside the building that seems unaffected by the Great Fire, there is a small room filled with ancient objects. One of the most valuable objects in the room is an old Koran that has long been forgotten. The Koran is not just an ordinary book. It is over 100 years old. However, despite the events that have occurred around it, it remains in perfect condition, enclosed in a glass cabinet. It is a legacy that has been passed down from generation to generation. Although not many people know about its existence, the book has incredible power, just waiting for the right time to be revealed. As the fire got closer to the small building, it began to consume the exterior of the building, destroying every material in its vicinity. The fire that was creeping around the building seemed unable to touch it. Some other parts of the building began to collapse, but the glass cabinet remained intact, and the Quran remained inside it without being touched by the fire at all. As the fire grew bigger, the people running around did not know that inside the building there was a miracle that would change their destiny. The firefighters who quickly moved to the scene of the fire had no idea that a miracle was taking place inside the building. Most of the firefighters were busy trying to control the fire in a larger area, and they had not realized that there was a place that was still intact amidst the chaos. They tried to isolate the affected area while the fire continued to spread to other places among the crowd of people running. A young man named Michael, who also works at one of the city's leading technology companies, approaches the building. Although he tries to run away, something makes him stop for a moment. He feels something strange, like a strong pull inviting him to come closer. Michael walked towards the burning building carefully. When he reached the nearly collapsed door, he heard a small gurgling sound from inside. He was surprised and curious. Without thinking, he opened the nearly fallen door. As he stepped inside, his gaze fell upon a glass cabinet that was still intact. The Quran stored inside looked as if it had just been put away. Michael approached, feeling a mysterious vibration surrounding the book. However, as the fire was getting closer, he knew that he had to leave the place immediately. As he stepped out, he heard a loud explosion from behind, and the building finally collapsed, drowning in flames. But he couldn't forget what he had just seen. When the fire finally died down a few hours later, Michael returned to the site, hoping to learn more. When he arrived, he was shocked by what he saw. The glass case that held the Quran was undamaged, and the book remained in perfect condition. The miracle was now open for the world to see. The fires that hit Los Angeles continue to spread throughout the city. Although some areas have begun to be tamed by firefighters, many parts of the city are still destroyed and devastated. Large buildings and houses that were once the center of community life are now just piles of rubble, covered in thick smoke, still blocking the view, creating a gloomy atmosphere that enveloped the entire city. Amidst this chaos, a strange story began to develop and spread rapidly from mouth to mouth. He couldn't take his mind off what he had just experienced. Even in the midst of the ongoing disaster, he felt that there was something bigger going on behind this incident. Starting from curiosity, Michael began to seek deeper information about the Koran that he found. It turned out that the Koran was not an ordinary book. It was a very old manuscript, more than 100 years old, which was passed down from generation to generation in a certain family. Known as the Miracle Koran, this book is famous for its history full of mystery and the legends that surround it. The legend says that this Koran has extraordinary powers, capable of withstanding all kinds of disasters. And the disaster that came, even a great fire, could not erase the people's faith. Although many people consider it a mere myth, Michael feels that there is something very real behind this story. The incident spread throughout the city, and many came to see it with their own eyes. The miracle in the Quran attracted the attention of many people, even those who had previously doubted the existence of supernatural powers. Amidst the chaos, a small group of townspeople from various backgrounds gathered around the site where the Quran was found. They felt there was something deeper to be understood. Some of them were people who were once agnostics or even atheists who had never believed in any spiritual powers before. However, this extraordinary event began to stir their hearts. They began to rethink the beliefs they had held so far. A woman named Sarah, a scientist working in a biotechnology research laboratory, was one of them. As an atheist who believes that everything can be explained by science, she never thought about things related to religion. However, after hearing about the extraordinary events that occurred around the Quran, Sarah became interested. Even though she held on to rationality, she couldn't shake off the strange feeling that arose within her. With great curiosity, Sarah joined the group to visit the place where the Quran was kept. As she looked at the Quran, she felt a strange vibration around it. He could feel something different in the room, as if there was a powerful and peaceful energy flowing from the book. He felt that there was something more than physics at work in the place. There was a businessman who had experienced AG and Khan after the death of Sebawan Danyam Mat and Diun Diel. The two of them, along with several others, began to gather more often to discuss what they had witnessed. Each time they gathered, they felt closer to something greater than mere coincidence or natural wonder. They began to open their hearts to something they had not understood before. Among them was a man named Ibrahim, an immigrant from the Middle East who had lived in Los Angeles for a long time. As a devout Muslim, Ibrahim had long believed in the miracle of the Quran and everything in it. However, he also knew that not everyone shared his views. Therefore, he decided to join the group in the hope of helping them understand more deeply about the teachings of Islam. The Quran explains the miracles contained in it and how Islam teaches about compassion, peace, and unity of humanity. Every word he said seemed to open a door for them to see the world in a different way. Although they were initially skeptical and doubtful, over time they became more and more open to learning the teachings of Ibrahim. Several weeks passed, and the group grew. They began to feel a peace that they had never felt before. They began to absorb the values taught by Ibrahim and began to feel connected to something greater than themselves. They began to feel changes in themselves. Their hearts began to open more, and many of them began to feel the calling to embrace this religion. However, the miracle of the Quran not being burned was not just a symbol of this great event. It was the beginning of a spiritual journey that would change the destiny of many people. The miracle not only touched those who witnessed it, but it also changed their lives in profound ways. People who had previously believed in nothing began to open their hearts to Islam. Many of them, after reflecting and studying the teachings of Islam more deeply, decided to embrace the religion. Although the destruction left by the fire was severe, there was something greater and deeper going on among the people. The fire not only changed the physical landscape of the city, but it also shook the foundations of many people's beliefs. Many felt that they had been given a second chance to see the world in a new way. One of the greatest impacts of the fire was the change that occurred in the people involved in the extraordinary event involving the unburned Quran. What had initially been viewed as a coincidence or an inexplicable miracle became something much more profound to those who witnessed it. Michael, Sarah, Andrew, Ibrahim, and many others who had previously lived with different beliefs found themselves at a turning point in their lives. Michael, who had previously been an agnostic skeptical of all forms of religion, found his heart filled with a desire to understand more about Islam and the Koran. What he had witnessed with his own eyes regarding the unburned Koran made him question his worldview. His curiosity began to turn into a more serious search, and she began to spend time reading, exploring something more powerful than mere coincidence or miracle. Sarah, who had been a scientist and an atheist who believed only in rational explanations, underwent a deeper change over the years. She had closed her heart to all forms of religion, believing only in what science could prove. But after witnessing events that could not be explained scientifically, such as the Quran not burning even though everything around it was burning, she felt torn between rationality and spirituality. Sarah felt moved to delve deeper into the teachings of Islam. She began attending small meetings with Ibrahim, who patiently explained Islam and the Quran. As she spoke, Sarah felt like a door had opened in her mind, giving her new insights that she had never experienced before. Previously, Andrew, who had lived in a world of materialism and business success, felt a significant change in himself. As a successful person, he always felt that wealth and power were everything, and that life only revolved around worldly achievements. However, after witnessing an event that he could not explain logically, especially about the unburned Quran, he began to feel empty. The incident challenged his views on life. What he once considered the key to happiness now began to seem like an illusion. Along with them, many others began to feel the same calling. Los Angeles residents, who were once skeptical of any form of religion, or who had long since abandoned their spiritual beliefs, felt a strong urge to begin their spiritual journey. They gathered in places that had once been empty spaces. One of the places that became the center of attention was a mosque that had been rebuilt after a fire. Once a forgotten place, the mosque was now a symbol of new life. Every day, people gathered to learn more about the teachings of Islam. Those who had initially doubted religion began to feel a peace and happiness that words could not explain. They felt a change in their hearts, a feeling that could not be explained by logic or scientific knowledge. For Ibrahim, this was a moment of joy and wonder. As a Muslim who had long believed in the truth of Islamic teachings, he felt that this was a moment he had never imagined before. He knew that this journey would not be easy, but he felt that now was the right time for many people to accept Islam into their lives, patiently and lovingly. Ibrahim continued to guide the group, explaining the values of Islam and teaching them about peace, compassion, and brotherhood. Of course, the change was not always easy. Many of them still felt doubtful, afraid, or even confused between what they had believed before and what they were learning now. Some of them even began to feel isolated from their friends and family who still held on to their old beliefs. They began to feel that they were on the right track, even though the journey was challenging. At this point, the changes taking place in Los Angeles began to gain attention from the outside world. The news caught the attention of international media, who came to cover what was considered an extraordinary event. Reporters and journalists came from all over the world to report the story of the once non-believers who had converted to Islam after witnessing the miracle. However, for those directly involved in this change, the most important thing was not the media attention or the recognition of the world. What mattered most was how they felt peace in their hearts, how they began to understand a greater meaning in life, and how they finally felt connected to God and to their fellow human beings. One by one, many of them finally decided to convert to Islam, embracing the religion they had studied and believed in. Some did it with a heart full of faith, some did it with doubt. However, they all felt an extraordinary change in themselves. This process was not an instant decision, but rather a profound spiritual journey, a search for the true meaning of life. For Michael, Sarah, and Andrew, it was a calling from God that led them to a deeper understanding of life, of Islam, and of the peace they could find in their hearts. After a major fire that killed many people and destroyed much of the city, although much of the city is still recovering, they had encountered something greater and more eternal. A great change was taking place among its citizens. The unburned Koran had become a symbol of the power of faith and was slowly beginning to change the beliefs of many, not only those who were directly involved in the event, but also the townspeople who, although not directly witnessing the event, felt its impact in their hearts. Among those who began to seek spiritual peace were Michael, Sarah, and Andrew, who had previously been not only atheists, but also skeptical of all forms of religion. The fire, which had claimed many lives and destroyed everything they considered important, had now opened the door for them to see the world in a different way. Michael, Sarah, and Andrew became symbols of the great change taking place in the town, a change that was not only happening in the social order. The Ukadiri Beruan, held by the Muslim community in the town, the more he read and the more he taught. The happier he became, there was a peace that he had felt before, which relied on logic. Danin struggled to understand the world, torn between what she believed and what was actually happening. She felt like the world she had always understood was crumbling. How could something so powerful, a book held sacred by millions around the world, remain intact in the midst of such a massive fire? Sarah felt that there was a deeper answer behind the events. She began attending more discussions and studies about Islam, talking to Ibrahim and others who had embraced the religion before her. He was not only interested in the new knowledge he gained, but also in the sense of peace he began to feel in his soul. Andrew, who had previously lived in a world of material things and power, felt lost after the fire. He was a successful businessman who always pursued worldly profits and success. However, after the extraordinary event, he began to feel empty. He began to question what was truly important in life. What was the point of all the wealth and success if his life felt empty? Andrew began to reflect on the meaning of life and began to search for something more than just material achievement. In the midst of his confusion, he met Ibrahim, a Muslim.